Today we're going to talk about oppression, specifically Negroes in America. Hope you enjoy.
They are known as a lot of things: Negroes, savages, niggers, blacks, and many others. But why are these, just as much human beings as us, treated so badly and have been in that for ages? Many people tend to believe that it just has always been like that. But as time has shown, it all started back in Africa in 1787. The African people were transferred to all over the world as slaves. A big amount of those slaves ended up in America. In many years, the slaves were treated as trash. They lived in animal-like environments and barely survived the cold winters and terrible food they not so often even had. The use of slaves continued up until 1865, when the 13th Amendment was adopted, which outlawed slavery and involuntary servitude.
As time went, the amount of slaves continued to fall, but unluckily the way the whites looked and treated the blacks did not change. The white Americans could simply not tolerate to be seen equal with the whites. The way of seeing them as slaves just couldn't be forgotten by many, especially in the South. There were continuing abuse and violence against the blacks. They separated the whites and blacks in nearly everything possible way. There were different restaurants, toilets, buses, and even schools. And as black, you were called names and told of what low-life scum you were nearly every day.
Dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream. My four little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. One day every valley shall be exalted, every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed.
One of the biggest persons known for fighting for equal rights was Martin Luther King. Martin himself grew up in one of the more wealthy families, and as he grew, he noticed how differently the whites and the black were treated. As a child, he was taught with showing respect towards others, which might be one of the reasons to his fight for equal rights. Later, as grown men, people began to realize that King Jr. had a certain talent. When he spoke, everybody listened. He could turn the eyes and ears of everybody, and the talent was used by greater good. There was held riots, demonstrations, and speaks against the oppression of black people all over America. He and his organization fought for equal rights in many years, and a lot of people joined their cause, both black and white. Sadly, it had to end for the fantastic speaker. In 1968, when he was shot dead, people all over the world cried over the loss of such a great person. But the fight was not over. The fight stayed, and many great things were accomplished. He was still very much alive inside of the hearts of the freedom fighters, and were a great inspiration for many and will always be one.
But not all people wanted equal rights. Some white racists in the South created an organization called Ku Klux Klan. They were an extremely violent group founded in 1865. They were, as they called themselves, the White Power. Klan members wore white hoods and robes and burned crosses to show the power of white pride and their Christian faith. They meant that the whites and their faith, Christianity, were the only right thing to be and believe in. Any other religions and people of other origin should be exterminated, which explained their hate for the blacks. Some Klan members broke into Negroes' houses, kidnapped them, tortured them, and or burned down their property. Today, the Ku Klux Klan are in small numbers and without influence.
And which consequences did all these problems between the whites and the blacks give? Well, the ghettos is one of the consequences. They were created as living places for minor groups, especially immigrants, where they were supposed to live. A ghetto is a slum quarter which consists of buildings with many apartments, only for the blacks and other minor oppressed groups, but especially the blacks. They were segregated from the rest of the country in those 30 ghettos. In some ghettos, the blacks wasn't even allowed to go out of the ghettos on holidays.
Today, the difference between the two colors aren't as big as it once were. Not at all, actually. Today we all live together with nobody seen as more worth just because of their culture or religion. An example could be that the President of the United States today is Barack Obama, who has been chosen as president twice. There are of course still few examples of racist acts against the blacks, simply because of people that in their minds still believe in oppressing the blacks. Maybe because of a bad experience, or maybe just because of their way of thinking, which might have something to do with the way they were raised. But overall, racism is a falling threat and is not seen as a danger anymore. And there does still exist anti-racism organizations who in a lesser way still help against the oppressions of all kinds.
If no one had ever stopped the slavery and white power, we would possibly still have the same thoughts of the blacks and the immigrants. Denmark, for example, have been affected by the way they were treated in the nations such as America. So we must say that the problem that happened between the Negroes and the colored had a positive influence, if we talk about human rights. Everyone is equal, and that's what counts.